the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. That's why I created the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. It's a production of Divorced Girl Smiling. Every show is 30 minutes, and the guests are my Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. Divorce lawyers, mediators, therapists, divorce coaches, and more. We're all going to help you get through your divorce with grace, with as little fear as possible, and feeling inspired about a post-divorce life. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and join us for 30 minutes. The Divorce Girl Smiling podcast starts right now. Before we get started, I wanted to tell you that when I was getting divorced, it felt like there were so many legal terms being thrown at me and I didn't have a clue what they meant. And my lawyer only had time to explain things about the process and what we were negotiating very briefly. I found myself intimidated, scared, and anxious throughout the process. I wish I would have known about Partwise. Partwise is a platform that you can join that will educate you on everything you're going through as you move through the divorce process. Not only will you find the answer to any question you might have, but as you engage in each module, you'll gain the clarity and understanding of what you're actually doing so you can make really good decisions and end up with a really good divorce outcome. I love Partwise. It's a wonderful platform. If you want to learn more, visit part-wise.com. I also want to tell you about a really good divorce attorney in the Chicagoland area. Her name is Debbie Cohen, and Debbie is so caring, so compassionate, and comes from a place of non-judgment. Debbie has been an attorney for several years. She's so experienced and really, really dedicated. Love her and really trust her. If you want to learn more, you can find Debbie at cohenfamilylawyer.com. This is going to be such a great episode. I'm really excited, honestly, and I want to tell you why. So my guest and I, we didn't prepare any script or list of things we're going to tell you that we think you should do if you're getting divorced or anything like that. My guest and I are going to talk about getting older, reinventing yourself, and attracting love. And I mean the right kind of love. The love that is going to be the love of your life and is going to make you the happiest you've ever been. My guest is Michèle Heffron. Michèle is a transformational life coach. And hi, Michèle.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Good. I was going to go on about how much you've achieved, and I will tell my listeners why they should be listening to your advice, because you've been a coach for a while, but before that, you were somebody who got divorced twice, but after the second time is when you really reinvented yourself, got extremely successful in the business world, learned how to empower yourself, and you travel everywhere, you know how to have fun. I mean, you're really living a quality life that you may not have even realized you were capable of. Tell me if any of that is accurate.
But it's 100% accurate. Sometimes I do think about it as that, however cruddy that time in my life was when I really was hitting rock bottom. This is when I even work with people going through divorce. Now it's like, really, I understand how devastating this can feel right now. But in so many ways, it can be one of the most pivotal moments in your life when you go through this, because as you know, Jackie, is that it's part of our life. It's not defining who we are when we go through a divorce. It's this kind of crappy time that we're in. But from that, you get to do with your life what you truly desire. And it's kind of reframing things to see this as challenging as this probably sounds to so many people, that the gift that you are actually being handed so you can find out what else is possible for you in life. And I never, ever could have thought that at the time because I was too far in the trenches to see what else was possible for me.
Well, there's people listening going, wait a minute, gift? You're telling me I'm getting a gift and I'm going to be able to reframe my life? Forget about it. I want to shut off the podcast now. If you're that person, keep listening because Michelle, you hit it on the head. You get divorced. You think your life is over. So many people say to me, who's going to want me now? And these people, Michelle, are in their 40s. I mean, 40s, you're a baby, and they're like, "What am I supposed to do now?" I wanna tell everybody listening that Michelle and I have both been there. We both understand how you're feeling, and if if I would have had a coach like Michelle, I think that it would've what I figured out in 10 years, I would have figured out in 1 or 2. And that's really what coaching is all about. So I wanna tell my listeners, Michelle is a divorce and I'd call you like a love coach, a divorce and a love coach who works with people over 50 who are getting divorced, or even if you're not, or even if you're thinking about it, and helps you, A, figure out how to reinvent yourself and figure out how to attract the right kind of people in your life, not even just men or people you want to fall in love with. Everybody, friends, people you associate with, so that you can have the best quality of life. So, Michelle, tell me a little bit about let's start with getting older because I think that when you get divorced, you really feel a lot older and insecure because of the age. Do you find that with people, and why is that?
I find that all the time, Jackie. And it doesn't matter how accomplished, and I use that word very loosely because we have these societal expectations or thoughts around what deems a person successful or not. You could be a doctor or a lawyer or a stay-at-home mom, and you could still be successful in those things. But no matter what it is, what I'm finding with women in particular who have been married for decades, in many cases, 30 or 30 plus years, is that there is this sense of loss in terms of who they are now. They think they're all washed up and that there's nothing else out there for them. When people hit retirement age in particular, I see this quite a lot is like, who's going to want me? And now I can see that there's so much more out there for people. And that's what I really help them see. I was watching, it's funny, I was watching a professional golf tournament over the weekend.
I
And
was too, the one with the celebrities.
yeah, but
Uh-huh.
I look at this and I am a golfer. I love to golf. But I've never actually had a caddy for myself. I've had coaches and things. But I was watching actually I was watching the Scottish Open. That's the one I was watching. And I was watching a couple of those, those golfers, and I was watching what the caddies were doing for them. And I thought, well, that's kind of what a coach does. We're helping you see the landscape out there and hit the ball where you don't know you should hit it because the caddy's got all the course studied and everything like that. And I thought that's kind of what I do is I'm going to help you see other things that you don't know that are possible for you and start questioning some of the uninvestigated beliefs, I guess, that maybe aren't working for you anymore. And when it comes to aging, that's a huge one because we've been sort of pigeonholed into these different areas in our life and we don't see outside of what that might be for us.
I want to address the question of who's going to want me now. And I think that I can't even count the number of women who have said that to me. And I feel like instead of asking the question, who's going to want me now, ask, how can I have a happy life? Because it shouldn't depend on who wants you or who doesn't want you or anybody else. I think that it's a two-step process. Figure out your life and reinventing who you want to be, And then wait, the love can come after that. What do you think? Because like I remember I met this girl or I knew this girl and she said to me she was getting divorced and she's like, "I don't know what I want to do. I need a partner first and then I'll figure it out." And I was like, "No. Do what you want to do first and the partner will come after that." Do you agree?
1,000%. I think what I hear a lot, and I do a lot of research in this area, and being alone is one of our human fears. It's universal, and none of us wants to be alone. Even though we say it sometimes, there's that fear of not having someone else in our life is it feels life threatening sometimes. And that's why we see this desperate, I've got to have a partner and then I can decide what I'm going to be doing. But what you're saying, Jackie, is that we also need to understand who we are. And this gets to the heart of all of the work that I do, is getting to who you are and what you're meant for. And you really have to go and trust your heart for that. And when you can center in on what it is that you want, and you're becoming that person that your true self is what I call it. It's being able to shed some of the old beliefs and things and become who it is you want to be. That's when the right people come into our lives. That's when the people who deserve us show up, not the people that we're going to go out and gonna go find because they fit a box or they've got these attributes that we think we must have in our life. And really it's a whole shift of looking at how we're calling people into our lives, but it's what we're becoming in the process that's going to do that. Because, you know, if you like dogs, and I mean, this is very basic, but if you just love, 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 love dogs, and then some person comes into your life and they're like, oh, I'm a cat person, can't have dogs.
Or I don't like pets.
Or I
I
don't
don't
like
like any
pets.
pets. Mhm.
Okay, but you really want that person because why? Because they're going to be a partner. What? So then we start to give up things that we love in our lives and that are meaningful to us in order to have this companionship. And then we find ourselves in this situation where we're not miserable because we've stripped our own selves of all the things that we love in order to fit into somebody else's box.
And then you end up divorced again or broken up because then you finally realize, "I can't live like this anymore."
Exactly.
Okay, we are going to a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that. "I can't live like this anymore." And I'm going to tell you, I'm telling my listeners what one of Michelle's clients said to her. And it's very, very interesting. You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, I'm here with Michèle Heffron, who is a divorce and love coach. And Michelle and I are talking about getting older, reinventing yourself, and attracting the right kind of person. So we will be right back. I was a stay-at-home mom when I got divorced, and when the divorce was final, I was left with no health insurance. It was scary because I had been on my husband's excellent corporate plan for several years, and to think about monthly payments, deductibles, rate increases, and more was really intimidating. I know I'm not alone in my experience, so if you are someone who will lose your health benefits when your divorce is finalized, I would highly recommend Lorena Tomasini, who is an insurance professional and the founder of Malm Insurance Agency. She's been doing this for 18 years. She's really trustworthy, knows so much about the insurance business. If you want to learn more, you can find her at Malm, MALMINS for insurance.com. I also want to tell you about a wonderful divorce attorney in Louisville, Texas. His name is David Hyman, and he's been practicing divorce law since 1991. He has a reputation for both skill and compassion, and he's gone through his own divorce, so he has a personal understanding of the emotions that go with this big life change. So whether you have a straightforward case or you're facing a complex divorce with custody issues, David can help you. He offers strategic thinking and dedicated attention. If you want to learn more, you can find David at hymanlawfirm.com. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. My guest today is Michèle Heffron, divorce, life, and love coach. And Michèle and I are talking about getting older, reinventing yourself, and finding love, real, meaningful love that works for you, the right person this time. Before we went to the break, I said I was going to tell you. So Michèle is the best writer of almost anyone I know. And I
You're so
appreciate that
sweet.
because I'm a writer. But if you want to sign up for Michelle's newsletter, go to michelleheffron.com and sign up because she sends these little very short articles that are just so good, and they take 1 minute to read and they make you feel great. Michèle, I read every one.
I
So
thank you so much. I love writing it. I love writing them and sharing my stories, and thank you.
it totally shows in the writing. Okay, so this one I saved, and you said that one of your clients said that her husband said to her, "This coach, whoever she is seriously messing with your head." And you said, why do you think he said that? Because she started changing and remembering who she was. She was a well-educated, high-achieving woman who had given up a dream career and spent decades managing the household, raising the kids, organizing everyone's lives, and just forgot herself and became invisible. And when she started to reclaim her voice, it triggered something in him. And tell me the rest.
Thank you. And I see this so often with my clients is that people get we well, first of all, we train people how to treat us. So we have been oftentimes letting our own selves be eroded by what's happening in our marriages or relationships because we don't set our own boundaries. We don't stand up and claim what we need in our lives. And so we tend to back burner ourselves often. So after years of doing this, we feel like we're disappearing. And when I'm helping people, most of it is, I do some of the nuts and bolts pieces of divorce. Absolutely, because that sometimes is part of what it is. But more often than not, it's a transformation of who you are and who you've been in this marriage. And so when you start to change and you start to stand in your power, you start to remember who you are, what you're meant for. And I'm not saying it happens overnight, but little by little, you start to stand up and people notice. People notice in your work environment, they notice, your kids notice. I tell people, well, they'll say, "Well, my kids don't respect me." And I go, "Well, how much do you respect yourself?" So people treat us, they
The
learn.
way we let them.
Yes. And so
Absolutely. I want
that's
to tell my listeners. So I was married for about 7 years, and I'm not going to take all accountability, but I'll take some accountability for the failure of my marriage. And I'll say this. I've been with someone now for 10 years. Okay. I've been divorced for 18. And we moved in together, this current person and I, like 3 years ago. So I'm not counting the first 7 years because when you don't live with somebody, the relationship's so much easier, I think.
yes.
And the difference between my marriage and being in this living situation is I'm completely different. So for example, in my marriage, I just basically did everything and then held in all the resentment and anger and bitterness that I was doing it. Now, I'll say to my now spouse, like, "Hey, can you put the sheets on the bed? I really don't like doing that chore. I just don't like it. Just don't. I washed them, they're on the bed." If you just tell someone what you want, then you don't have to have resentment. And he's just like, "Oh, sure." Because half the time, people don't even realize. It's not that they're lazy or that they don't wanna do it, they just haven't been asked. And so to just sit there and build up resentment, you're only hurting yourself. So you're kinda like what you said, Michelle, about the kids, like, this woman should tell her kids, "Look, you're not respecting me. You're not allowed to talk to me that way. That's not acceptable to me." And they'll say, "Well, you never said anything before." "Well, I'm saying something now."
Yes, and again, that I think what you're saying there is being able to state your needs without fear of being rejected. And I think that rejection is why so many of us, that fear of rejection, Jackie, is so why so many of us don't state our needs, because somehow we have been told along the way, or we've learned along the way, that we're not worthy of having any needs. And so it runs deeper in so many ways. So it's starting to unravel where these beliefs came from, so we can look at them from that wise woman that we are now and say, oh, well, actually, I don't have to believe that anymore. So you actually get to start to transform your way of thinking as part of the building up of the respect and the asking for what you need. Because, yeah, we can tell people all day long, well, just tell people what you need. And they're like, well, geez, if I do that, I might get rejected. Somebody might say my needs don't matter. So we have to start learning how to also become resilient through this process. It's not just a one size fits all thing. We have to take a look at what's going on for you. Why do you have that belief? Where did that come from? What are we
Okay,
learning now?
this is a great transition because a lot of times where it comes from is lack of self-worth. So if somebody doesn't really feel worthy, and you've written about worth, you wrote a great piece on feeling worthy and I worthy and how you didn't feel worthy. Well, how do you get to the feeling of feeling worthy? You work on yourself. And this is a huge strength of Michelle's. How many women come to see you and go, "What the heck am I supposed to do with my life now? I'm 50. I haven't worked in 10 years. I don't know what I want to do. I don't even know what I can do." And once you work with them and they get that job or they start doing what they love, then all this other stuff kind of follows that, don't you think?
Yes. It's that whole adage that, as the tide rise, all boats rise too. So when you start to change just one area of your life, pretty much every area starts to feel the impact, the ripple effect of that. And so it's starting to learn, it's you start small. And it's easy to read a really great self-help book over a weekend and go, "Yep, I'm gonna do all this stuff." Well, the truth is that it doesn't happen that fast. And so it's just a step at a time. So I'm a big advocate of baby steps. So let's take one area that we can really, really work on. And I guarantee that every time you start working on one area, all kinds of things start opening up in other areas of your life. But you do really need to do the work, and it's a daily practice. It's just like if you're going to the gym, you know a lot about going to the gym. If you're going to go to the gym and strengthen your muscles, you actually have to show up. You actually have to show up and do the work, right? And so that's the same thing for when you're trying to transform your life and to become a different version of yourself. It's not like you're just throwing out everything in the drawer and just putting everything new in. You're going to work through some of the stuff that is no longer needed. And I don't know about you, but I have one of those drawers in my kitchen. And every few months, I just go through and I take stuff out that doesn't belong there anymore. It's an easy place to throw things into. But
That's
that's
the best feeling in the world, cleaning out that kitchen drawer. Best
exactly.
feeling. Okay, now I wanna say something about what you just said about the gym. You use that as an example. Now if somebody says, "Okay, I need to go to the gym." So then they figure, "I have to go 7 days a week. I have to do a hard workout for 1 hour," and then they burn out, and then forget it. The behavior never happens. What Michelle is saying by baby steps is don't put pressure on yourself to go all out. Just say, "Okay, I don't do anything now. So I'm going to start taking a 15-minute walk every morning before I sit down at my desk to work. How hard is that? Then you'd get that 15-minute walk and you go, oh my God, I love my 15-minute walks. They're the best. Okay, now I'm going to incorporate a yoga class twice a week. I'm just going to go twice a week. And then you can say, okay, or even once a week. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to step it up to twice a week. This way, the goals are achievable. You're feeling proud of yourself that you achieved the goal and you're ready to handle something else. Especially during divorce, I think it's really hard to put all this pressure on yourself because you're just dealing with so much and you're very delicate.
Yes. Divorce is a particularly challenging time, Jackie, as you know. Um, I used to say, just based on my own experience, is that you do things and you say things you would never say during the whole rest of your life. I mean, it is scary, it's unpredictable, it's you're con
Chaotic.
it's just everything,
Uh-huh.
part of it. And so as even when you're working with, a coach or somebody, I think the baby steps are committing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet with this person once a week. I don't know what I'm going to talk about all the time, but most of the time there's stuff going on. Is being able to get talked off the fence a lot of the time and then having some clear goals and steps that you're going to take for the next week and not beating yourself up if you don't do it. I think we women tend to beat ourselves up a lot when we're not doing all the time. And sometimes it's not about the doing, sometimes it's about the slowing down and giving yourself some grace along the way as well.
Okay, now I don't want people to think that we're talking about working out because I was just thinking about this. Maybe they think,
It's not.
okay, we were just using that example as like an analogy to figuring out what the heck you want to do with your life now. And the best example I can give of that, I'm just going to tell my story really quickly because I think this will help people. I followed my love of writing. I was always a writer. I loved it. Okay. When I was getting divorced, I wasn't working at all, but I was writing novels on my computer at night when my kids went to bed and I couldn't stop writing. My first thing I did to break into the field of writing was I took a job for $50 a week and wrote a column about what was going on in my town for the weekend, and it was published in the local paper. And the first time I saw my name in the paper and my picture, I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever."
I love that.
So that $50 a week job then turned into them taking more chances on me, having me do more stuff. And I ended up with a syndicated column called Love Essentially that was published all over the country for 7.5 years every week. So that is my success story that I want to tell people. Whatever you love, go for it. Whatever you need to do. And who cares about your ego if you have to do like an internship type of job? Who cares? I was 50, no, I was early 40s, but I was doing the job of like what interns do, college interns. And I didn't care because I got to write and I got my name and picture in the paper and it was cool. And I felt so proud of myself. And that's really how that kind of stuff starts. And Michelle, I think you're really gifted at helping people because you kind of did that in the business world too. I mean, you were a really big deal in your corporate job. And so you know how to get ahead, you know how to open doors and make things happen. And that's why I think you're such a good coach.
Thank you. And I have to share this story because I knew I always wanted to help people in some way. I didn't really understand what that was. In fact, Jackie, I don't even know if I ever shared this with you, but when I was in college, when I was going to college, they used to make you take this assessment, so you would know what bucket you kind of fit into. And my bucket came back, and they said I would be a great psychologist or therapist or humanitarian, somebody who really was thoughtful and caring about people. And I was like, at that time, such a headstrong little person. I said, "Oh, no, 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 no." I had this vision that you wore bad shoes and not very fashionable clothing if you were a therapist. And so this is a story I made up. And so I said, "No, no, no, I'm going to be a CEO. I'm going to run the world and da 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 da." Okay, well, I was always miserable in the jobs I was in, even though I could excel at some of these things. But what I always loved to do was talk to people, nurture people, help them. Even when I was in the nonprofit world as a leader, what I loved most about it was building these relationships with people, coaching my teams of people. I loved the coaching piece of it. And it wasn't until I hired a coach after my life was just turned upside down. And I wish I'd had her going through the divorce. That would have maybe made things move along a lot faster. But and I realized at that very first meeting with her, and she's still a friend of mine, and I still refer other people to her as a coach. I realized that I was supposed to be a coach. That's what I was meant for. And I didn't realize that that's what I loved. And so, what you did, you already had the wherewithal to follow what you loved, which I love. But I do think that that's a huge thing because we are often going against what we love because we don't think that's the right thing to do.
Yes. And if you just go with your gut on what you love to do, and who cares what other people think? Like, but Michelle, you couldn't tell your young self not to do that. Now, that is a great segue to say there is the biggest benefit of getting older because you're not afraid. You don't care what other people think. And you just go for what you love and you don't care about the bad shoes. And by the way, I know some therapists who are the most
Oh,
beautifully
I do
dressed
too, and
people.
that's my
Yeah.
story.
But you're right, and so the gift of getting older is wisdom, self-awareness, and I think people listening need to know that all this stuff, you're gonna be so pleasantly surprised that it's easier than you thought it was gonna be once you get the help you need.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the reasons, Jackie, that I mean, I love working with people of all ages, but I do feel like so many women kind of gravitate toward me when we're in our 50s and 60s and even 70s. It's interesting because there is a whole different like, oh, and I feel like I play on a different level with and I feel like the wisdom plays into that so much. And I'm still learning. I am not "Oh, I've got it all figured out now." I'm always learning and growing and taking more chances to understand who I am better so I can better serve other people. I mean, my whole mission in life is really to be of service and to do that from a place, from my heart and a way that's authentic and true to others because I think that we all need somebody in our lives, and if I can just be that one person for somebody for whatever time it is, I know that it makes a difference to have someone there for you.
Oh, I love it, Michelle. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do because I think what you do with Divorced Girl Smiling is such a, um, needed thing because when people are going through something as even thinking about going through a divorce, what do you do? Where do you start? And we have these notions or we ask other people who really don't really know what to do. They're just going on their own opinions of what they think you should do. And I think when you can bring this service to this level of service that you have to so many people, I think it's a huge benefit. And I hope a lot of people will share the work that you're doing as well, because I do think it's
Thank you
important.
so much. And what Michelle's talking about is if you go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com, there's a whole list of trusted, vetted divorce professionals. Most of them have free consults. You can Go look down the list, see who you think might be a good fit for you, or you could sign up for my free consult where I will help you find good, trusted professionals. Michelle is on that list. So if you go there, you can find Michelle under the coaches category. You can also find Michelle at michelleheffron.com. And thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.